We'll call this meeting to order. We do have a quorum. It is January 22nd and it is 2:34, so we will get started. I just want to thank Councilmember Lee for standing in my place last time. Seemed like it was already a while ago for running the meeting, so thank you very much, Councilmember Lee. We've got the agenda before us. Everybody's had a chance to look at it in advance. Without any objection or any edits to the agenda, seeing none, I'll just move forward and the agenda is approved. We also have the approval of the draft December 11th, 2024 Management Committee meeting minutes. We've all gotten those in advance. I know Lori has asked if there's any edits to any of that. So if there are no edits or changes, I'd look for a motion to approve those draft meeting minutes. Moved by Cedarberg, seconded by Pacheco. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. And that passes unanimously. We will now move on to our non-consent business reports of standing committees. And our first item is item 2025-02. It's a joint committee report and it's a same week item. So should this pass, we'll be going to the council meeting tonight. And it's a special January budgetary amendment. And we have Ned Smith, our Chief Financial Officer, with us today to present on this item. And again, we've all gotten the links and the reports. And so Ned, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. I'm Ned Smith, Chief Financial Officer, standing in for Stuart McMullen. In 2025, the special January budget amendment makes changes to the operating budget in regional administration and transportation and to the capital budget in transportation. The proposed amendment was reviewed and approved by the Transportation Committee on January 13th and the Management Committee earlier today on January 22nd. Whoops.
Yep, that one will come at the next meeting.
That was me doing my very poor Councilmember Johnson impression.
Yeah, you're great.
Well, I'm still Ned Smith and I'm still CFO of the council.
And I am not the CFO of the council,
right.
Thank God. Okay.
Amen. With me are the finance directors Ed Petrie and Heather Geisel from Metro Transit and Metro MTS. This is the 2025-2 joint same week for the special budget January amendment for 2025.
Great.
Changes to the 2025 operating budget in regional administration and transportation, and changes to the capital budget in MTS and Metro Transit. This was reviewed and passed by the Transportation Committee on January 13th. Notable changes to the operating budget, the first in regional administration. We are adding 9 FTEs in human resources to accelerate the recruiting and hiring for Metro Transit. And within the transportation budget, we are incorporating the forecast for MVES and regional transportation sales and use tax from the state's November 2024 economic forecast. The adopted budget had relied on the February 2024 economic forecast. As presented to this committee in December, this provides for a slight increase in the MVES funds and a larger decrease in the sales tax funds from the adopted budget. The MVEST increase was 8.5 million. The sales tax dropped 33.2 for a net drop of 24.3 million. In Metro Transit, the amendment adds $3 million to the expenditures for the transit development project on the US Highway 169 and Trunk Highway 55 corridors and adjusts fare revenue for the fare simplification policy adopted by the council last November. Notable changes to the transportation capital budget include the addition of a state appropriated $10 million for a grant to Hennepin County for the Blue Line Extension Anti-Displacement Community Prosperity Program, and the addition of $13.3 million in sales tax funds for the Green Line Storage Barn. This also recognizes the $1.1 million in Ramsey County funds for the G Line, completing the last element of the program laid out in the 2024 fourth quarter budget amendment to use state bonds for the B and D line projects. The authorization of $8.6 million in sales tax funds to be used in MTS for small and large bus purchases in 8 projects. And the individual projects and their changes are outlined on the attached Table 9. Therefore, Madam Chair, the motion is that the Metropolitan Council authorizes the 2025 unified budget as amended and in accordance with the attached tables. And with that summary, we can answer any questions the committee might have.
Thank you, I appreciate that report. Are there any questions from the committee? No? I just have a couple of quick questions. So just refresh my memory, we've revised for the November forecast. What do we do when the February forecast hits in like March or whenever that hits? Do we just kind of keep rolling? I don't know if there's another adjustment in our stuff or if we feel good about where we are and we just keep moving at this point. And I should know that and I don't, so.
Madam Chair and members of the committee, we would, at the next budget amendment, we would also include those revisions.
Okay, great. The only other thing that I had is in the transportation capital budget, noting that there's a $10 million pass-through grant from the state to Hennepin County for anti-displacement work for Blue Line. And in having a quick chat, it does require a match that Hennepin County has to secure. And so it's not our obligation. I'm assuming we might be that, but it's not coming from us. And I just remembered that that was a big discussion at the time when we learned about that grant.
See, we actually pay attention.
I know, right? Wow, the clock is right once in, or broke clock is right once in a while. So yeah, so I just want to make that clear that it's just finally moving to Hennepin County, but they can't unlock until they do find that matching grant. So any other comments or questions? All right. Seeing none, then we've got the proposed action that the Metropolitan Council authorize the 2025 unified budget as amended and in accordance with the attached tables. I would look for a motion to approve.
So moved.
Moved by Lilligren, is there a second?
Second.
Moved by, was that Chai?
Yeah.
Sorry, Councilmember Lee, I should say. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. And that passes unanimously, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
And we will now move on to our next item. And thank you, Ned, appreciate you being here. We have item 2025-29, it's pay equity implementation. And we have Sherry Chestnut and she Burkers and Deputy Chief Human Resources Officer. So I'll turn it over to both of you. Thank you for being here, Cassandra, as well. And look forward to your report.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. I'm very excited to be here today for my first time before you.
Welcome.
Thank you. Today I will provide an overview of the Local Government Pay Equity Act, explain the key components reviewed for compliance, and request your approval for our pay equity implementation report. The Minnesota Local Government Pay Equity Act was established in 1984 by the Minnesota legislature to address systemic pay disparities between female-dominated job classes when compared to male-dominated job classes of comparable value. All compensation programs have three parts. The first part is a pay level, the level an employer pays in comparison to other employers. Pay structure, which is the relationship among jobs within an organization, and the pay method, which is the set of policies and procedures for paying individual employees. Pay equity is designed to analyze the pay structure for evidence of gender inequity. It's really rooted in the principle of comparable worth, where jobs requiring similar level of skill, effort, and responsibility receive equal pay, regardless of whether the roles are traditionally male or female dominated. The Local Government Pay Equity Act applies to all public sectors in Minnesota and is really defined and set forth within Minnesota statutes and Minnesota Rules Chapter 3920. The Minnesota Management and Budget, MMB, is responsible for the enforcement of the Local Government Pay Equity Act. Compliance is mandatory, and failure to comply will actually result in a 5% reduction in state aid or a fine of $100 per day, whichever is greater. So compliance requirements, we are required to submit a pay equity implementation report every 3 years to MMB. The last time we completed this was in 2021, which means it is that time to submit the report again with data reflecting as of December 2024. Analysis requirements as defined by Minnesota statutes and Minnesota rules include implementing a job evaluation system that evaluates positions based on their job value rather than who performs the job. This has been set in place for quite some time. Metropolitan Council utilizes the HAY methodology for its job evaluation system. The next step is data collection for all Metropolitan Council positions. This involves gathering a lot of data, including job titles and job classifications, comparable work value for each of the classification as is determined by our job evaluation system, numbers of male, female, and non-binary employees in each classification, and then salary information associated with each position. Once the data is gathered, it is entered into a system of record utilized by MMB. It runs a test and creates a report to determine if the Metropolitan Council is compliant with the Local Government Pay Equity Act. It looks at 4 tests to determine compliance. The first one is the completeness and accuracy test. This test ensures that all data is included in the report is accurate and submitted on time. The second test is the statistical analysis test. This test ensures female-dominated jobs are not systematically undervalued by comparing salary data to determine if female classes are paid consistently below male classes of comparable work value. The third test is the salary range test. This test compares the average number of years it takes for individuals in male and female classes to reach the top of a salary range. This test only applies to classes where there is an established number of years to move through the salary range. And then the fourth test is the exceptional service pay test. This test reviews additional pay practices to just ensure that they are equally distributed. Results of 80 or 80 or 0 are actually considered to be passing scores. So you'll see for our test here, we have actually received a score of 80 or above or 0 for each of the 3 tests, and we are fully compliant with Minnesota standards. Our statistical analysis test is at 119.5034%. Salary range test is 95.26%, and exceptional service pay test is at 0%. You'll also see in the past 3 reporting periods, we have been in compliant each of the 3 years that we submitted these reports. The benefits of pay equity analysis include ensuring fair compensation for all employees regardless of gender, legal compliance including avoiding penalties and or fines, and then supporting a fair and equitable workplace, which helps to provide a positive organizational impacts for our employees, including employee morale and retention. Our next steps, HR will officially submit the report to MMB following council approval. The proposed action is that the management committee approves the 2024 pay equity implementation report. With that, I'll stand for questions.
Thank you very much. Does the committee have any questions? Councilmember Cedarberg.
I have a couple of questions. The first one relates to this, and then the second one, so we'll just do this. So could you give an example of 2 different job families that are male-dominated and female-dominated that would be compared against within the Met Council?
That's a great question, and I don't have that information on me at this time. I didn't bring that list with me at this time.
But that would be interesting. And the second question, just a follow-up, is have you done or will you be doing also a gender equity study within the Met Council, within departments, et cetera, because I find that that's where a lot of gender equity, disequity in pay shows up, with me doing the same job as a male. And I'm speaking as a female scientist throughout my whole life, sitting next to a male scientist. So that's where I see a lot of the gender equity, inequity showing up. So I don't know if you've done that or will be doing that, but I think it's important.
Madam Chair, members of the committee. So pay equity, when it reviews does the test, analyzes the test within the software system, it actually looks at each of the positions by our job or comparable worth points that we have. And it does a statistical analysis within the program itself to review how those positions are related to one another. It kind of breaks it down and does the analysis as it goes throughout the report. So it kind of does that for us in a way. So we haven't done that beyond what the report has done.
I'm just curious whether that would give you very different answers, because I understand this statistical analysis is doing one thing, and I'm asking for something different.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair and committee members. Though we haven't done a formal study with that, when we look at positions and we do job offers for anyone, promotion, someone coming in from the outside, anytime we make an offer, we assess the equity across that job. And then, so we are, then if we're hiring an engineer, we're looking at the other engineers, and that's in grade, male, female, and making sure that we have equity. And we have consistently been known, if we bring someone in and see there's an inequity for an existing person, to make that adjustment while we're making an offer for someone who's new. So we do real-time adjustments with those when we see opportunity for exactly what you're talking
Because a
about.
lot of times, just as a follow-up question, Madam Chair, is there'll be a salary range, and the male's at the top of the range and the female's at the lower part of the range. And that's inequity, so.
Yes, correct, absolutely. And we look at years of experience,
It's
education,
very
all
complex.
separate from gender.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember Cedarberg. It kind of ticked off one of the questions I had too. And, again, just 80% or higher, and we're, now at 119.5. I don't know exactly what that means, and I know it's better than 80, so that's good. But yeah, maybe just someday I can just sit down with you guys too, and if anybody else wants to, Councilmember Cedarberger, and just to learn more about this. It's very intriguing for me, and I think it's very important, of course. And so, yeah, I think it's good to get this report. It's part of the process, so it'll move through us and then on for final implementation and submittal, if I understand correctly.
Yes.
Any other questions on this? All right then, again, the proposed action is that the Metropolitan Council approve the preliminary 2025 pay equity implementation report. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Cedarberg, is there a second?
Second.
Moved by Pacheco, or seconded by Pacheco. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. That passes unanimously, so thank you very much. And before you leave, in our previous item under the budget amendment, Appendix H, this report of the staff complement in FTEs across the whole council, I love this. So, I was reading the whole thing and then I ran across this, so I will save the whole report, but this is just, if you haven't really looked at this, it's a good snapshot of the council over the years, and it's doing exactly what we've known we've needed to be doing in the last 3 years, and where we've been adding people in the areas, and especially human resources, and making sure that we've got the support that we need to add in transit and transportation or ES or wherever it might be. So I'm assuming you had a big role in this, Cassandra, maybe not, I'm not sure.
No, Madam Chair, committee members, that was handled by finance.
Okay.
But I would add, thank you to them for this report and also for the support from the organization to staff appropriately to meet
Yeah.
needs.
Well, thank you. You guys are doing a great job, and I just appreciate all the hard work to make sure we're doing everything the way we're supposed to be, so thank you. Thanks. All right, we now will move on. We've got information item, small business equity assessment results is our next item on the agenda for information, and I've got Lila Eltawaley, I'm not sure if I said that, you can correct me, our senior manager in enterprise, and then Ashante. So thank you very much for being here today. And I will turn it over to you.
Thank you very much. Yes, my name is Lila Eltawili. I'm the council's
Thank you, Eltawili. I will get that. Thank you very much.
I'm the council's enterprise equity senior manager in the Office of Equity and Equal Opportunity.
And good afternoon, Ashanti Payne, Assistant Director, Office of Equity and Equal Opportunity.
All right. Great. The Small Business Equity Assessment, we're here to share the final results of this assessment. This particular assessment was actually born from a request that the Equity Advisory Committee made a couple of years ago. They requested an assessment of equity practices, and through multiple conversations, we ended up doing the Small Business Equity Assessment. Before we begin, there have been multiple partners internally, our partners from procurement, the small business unit, and a number of staff across the entire organization actually assisted us with, partnering with us, but also providing feedback and a number of other things that helped us formulate this assessment. So they deserve a lot of recognition and thanks, and we'll get started. So we requested from the vendor, which is Strong and Starlight, to come in and assess, identify, and then recommend strategies and best practices to alleviate barriers. We asked them to look into our processes, our policies, our programs, people structures, and our goals and the impact that it has on the organization. We also asked about language access and whether or not there were barriers to businesses who are trying to access our programs. They had a 5-step methodology. First, they created a core team. This core team started out with the project team, which was myself, Tori Hampton, and William, who has accepted a position outside of the organization at this time. But the three of us were the core team, and then we created an extended core team, which included folks from our small business unit and then our small business engagement unit. There was a discovery phase, which really focused on listening. We had a number of listening sessions across the entire organization where we had focused groups. We had a session for equity staff, we had a session for project managers, for procurement, and a number of other groups that regularly engage with these types of programs or projects in general. There were also surveys and one-on-ones conducted. We sent out a survey where folks were able to, just give us more responses to maybe some of the things that they weren't able to share in the listening sessions. And we also asked them to do a field scan. So they did a national field scan where they looked across the country at other entities that have similar programs and reported back some of the things that they saw there. They also did a field scan locally as well, so across the state. They looked at our infrastructure, so they looked at our policies, our programs. They looked at our technology, and they looked at our people structure. And that was particularly interesting to see because they looked at how we interact with one another in order to get this work moving through the organization. And then finally, the analysis and draft. We received a report that was about 110 pages long, and a website, an interactive website with a lot of data. And it was very, very informative and very helpful, I think, for our future small business work. The listening session started out with a pre-survey where we engaged about 145 businesses and 60 staff who first signed up. Not everyone who registered made it to the listening sessions, but through that survey, we were still able to engage them and hear back from them in that particular manner. We had about 69 business owners show up to our listening sessions. Some of those were focused groups, so we had a session for primes, we had a session for, I think, folks that do construction and other businesses, and then 59 staff sessions. 3 businesses took us up on one-on-ones, and then we had about 143 businesses respond to our surveys, and 21 staff. In total, we had 193 business owners respond to surveys and listening sessions, and 74 staff also either come to our listening sessions or complete a survey.
And just quickly, when was this taking place?
Over the last year.
Okay,
Yeah, it took about 12 months to get from beginning to end.
perfect, thank you.
And this is the disaggregated information, about 68.5% identified as female, 29.37 identified as male. We had 11.9% who were veterans, and then about 2.13% who did not respond to the gender question. And then the side shows us kind of the racial breakdown of the groups as well.
Thank you. I'm going to talk about some of the themes that came out through this process, both from business owners and council staff that were engaged in this assessment. And really this first theme, in terms of the business owner, is really about trust. And oftentimes businesses become frustrated or don't find a way to connect with us as an organization, and they lose faith or they lose trust. So that is definitely one of the things that we measure in terms of how many small businesses are actually submitting quotes or getting bids, not just awarded contracts. Do they trust the process? Do they think they have an opportunity? And then also, through our outreach and engagement efforts, how many businesses are we reaching? How many businesses are we rebuilding that trust with and bringing them into the fold? Also, businesses who have never done business with the council before, we want to know about that as well. That's all important information that we like to assess. How are we viewed in the public and in the contracting community? And then also in terms of council staff member, saying make it something we talk about more at the council. And this is something we're also focusing in on. The Office of Equity and Equal Opportunity has developed a communication plan really to communicate, tell our story and also communicate success, celebrate success, but also talk about the tools, the resources that are available. So again, something that we also find important in the work and in this work that we do. So in relation to theme one was business owners engaged struggle to find contracting opportunities specific to the goods and services they provide. And then the one thing that I want to really focus our attention in on is not knowing where to find contracting opportunities. When asked to identify top barriers that if removed would be impactful, this was the top barrier that was identified. And I think why I find this to be important to focus on is because the Office of Equity and Equal Opportunity did a survey in 2021, and this was the top barrier that was identified by small businesses back then. And we have not addressed that. And also it's not about their ability to Google, it's more to do with finding opportunities specific to their services. So this is something that we can't just ignore this time around. We have to take it and actually do have some actions around it to mitigate that barrier. Theme two, the average small business contracting capacity shared, it was higher than the average dollar amounts of contracts secured. So what this means, many businesses are saying that they can do more, but they're not being contracted to do more. Again, one of the things that we know is that we have a sheltered market program, but we have capped it, when I say we, the council, at $175,000. And that's something that we could today make that decision. The statute does not cap it. None of our other partners in the region or at the state that have this same legislative authority have capped it. So that's something we could fix tomorrow if we chose to change that.
Ashante, just a quick question. So, great, I mean, at least there's nothing stopping us. And are we finding that we also could utilize that extra capacity that they have in the projects that we're doing?
Yes.
It's one to have the ability to do more. And are we needing more? I mean, because if that's the case, that number could be adjusted pretty quickly.
Yeah, I think where this shows up, we had highlighted a business that had never performed work for the council. And they got over $2 million worth of business with the council. So we wanted to bring them in and hear from them. And they were like, yes, this is great. But a lot of times, especially when they're working for, as a subcontractor, and they're telling the prime, hey, we do this, we can do all, and they're being told, no, we don't need you to do, we just want you to do this amount. What that highlights to us is that we need to find more opportunities to directly engage these small businesses as primes to fully use their capacity and to contract with them at larger amounts. That also cuts out the prompt pay concern and some of those other things. And it's also one of many reasons why we have been strongly advocating and fighting for a diverse spend plan policy and procedure, because we need to have a plan to be able to utilize the tools we have for a sheltered market and other tools to directly engage with these businesses. And without a plan and that shared responsibility and accountability, we're not tracking this the way we can and in the way that we should be.
And just one more quick question. So on the example that you gave where the minority business owner is under a prime because they're a sub within the stack of business, is it because the prime is managing a budget with the council and there's just a cap on that piece of the project, and that's why they, even though the sub is like, hey, I could be doing more, but is it just a nature of them not being a prime themselves and owning a whole piece of business as a prime? Is that what you were getting at? Or am I not being clear in understanding, which could be the case?
Madam Chair, Council Committee members, I think it's more complex than that. I think it's multifaceted. I think these prime contractors have a goal and objective. They also have a business model. So sometimes it's, we'd rather do that ourselves as opposed to subcontracting it out. It could be in some cases that, they only need this much to meet a goal. So that's as far as they're not gonna go beyond that. And it could be, it could be a multitude of other factors. I think the main point is that the small business isn't in the position to make some of those decisions. And we need to find opportunities and be more intentional and thoughtful and plan for those opportunities for these businesses to fully utilize their capacity, and they'd be in the position to make some of those business decisions relative to how they're going to both subcontract, spread out risk, and other things that go into figuring out how to accomplish a project.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
The third theme that came out of this engagement was improvements to technological solutions may benefit both business owners and staff. I think we've talked about the limits of our technology for a long time, so I think I'm not gonna beat this one too much, but this has definitely been a focus and something we've been talking about over the years as an area where we have a lot of room to improve.
And Ashante, I won't belabor it too much, but with AI now, the whole world is just moving fast out here, and we're government, so our systems, a while back were really cool, but it doesn't take long where people's expectations when they're getting into a system on how do I get to what I want, move, as fast as possible. So I appreciate that the data is telling us what we probably already know, and then how do we stay at pace where it encourages people to more readily get what they need in a way that they can receive it. So just keep us posted on that, so when we need to put out more contracts for updated whatever, we can do that.
Manager.
Yes,
Yeah, no,
Councilmember
thanks for
Lilligren.
pausing here and I wanted to say something on the other slide too, but I really appreciate and applaud the work that's being done and what we're doing, and I think this council's been very clear and deliberate. You know, we're pushing against the status quo, right? So you go to the contractor-subcontractor relationships, you know, we're setting the threshold, we have a very specific methodology to do that, but it keeps this cap down, right? So it's to get creative and to listen to our staff, what they recommend, that what we do to maybe unbundle some of this work going forward, so smaller businesses can be more competitive as primary bidder contractors instead of you know, we'll get there, but on this, and you know, we invest a lot in our technology, and I support our model, and this committee regularly reviews increases in technology investment. And so, and I don't know what I'm talking about here, so just to be clear about that, but is there an ability as these needs of increased technology investment, expanding our IT contract, when it comes to mind, is that where this gets wedged in? You know, and so it's not just sort of keeping an eye on it, as you say, Asante, but it's actually finding those opportunities for action that cuts across sort of our divisions here.
Madam Chair, Councilmember Lilligren, I think you hit it actually right on the head. I think if you look at the quote that came from a staff member, you know, out at One System, created that tracks all steps, documentation, purchasing, small business information with clear responsibilities and ownership across the council. I think that's a lot of things that we do are, and we talk about it, are siloed in our approach, and technology is also one of them. And I think we need to be more cohesive. That would probably make the biggest difference in terms of advancing us further in this space.
Thanks, and I'll just note, Madam Chair, I've never seen a contract extension, expansion in IT not clear this committee. And, you know, and I know technology is expensive, I know we need it, like you were just pointing out, but it does kind of raise my eyebrows sometimes when I see that bottom line dollar amount. And I get it, we need to make these kinds of investments, but I really appreciate what you're bringing forward here, because it's making me think, what other kinds of conditions can we put on those kinds of contract expansions? Thanks.
Thank you, Councilmember Lilligren, and you know what you're talking about, so that's awesome. And I would just say, I'm shocked that we don't have something like this already, just because of the way the world works, right? So it is an expectation, why can't we have this? So all those techie entrepreneurs out there, it hasn't been created, let's go.
Madam Chair, committee members, we fully recognize the need that we have been falling behind in technology, and this is just one area in that. What you've approved in the past has included a lot of initiatives, and I know there's an initiative to get to the point where we can better track and fully track and report out what it is we spend on small businesses and DBEs. So there is a project that's been undergoing with our CIO and OEO. We've taken a look at our BPSI program, our Business Process Systems Improvement or Integration, to see if that might be an option to start bringing some of this technology to address something like this. But fully recognize what you're saying, and it is something that continues to be worked on.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I know everything's, you know, a priority, right, until it you know, you know, safety, security, and all of those things are a priority. We know that here at the council, and so is this. So we keep it in front of us. You know, we really want to support you in all of this.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, Councilmember Pacheco, so sorry.
Chair, members, as Ashanti said earlier, a lot of this is construction. And so we're building our models to keep up with the construction, but there's so many other businesses these days. There's delivery, that a lot of our members are trying to get at.
Yes.
But everybody advertises, even when they put leads, it's construction. It's bigger dollars, so it looks like it's successful, But you're not reaching a lot of folks that aren't into construction. And that kind of holds you back, and even in technology, because you're basing it on this. And there's so much more over here.
It's really, absolutely couldn't agree more. Thank you. Okay, in fact, there was a kind of a quote about that too in the slide before, so.
Yes, and some recommendations and some best practices that we can look to here in our region. Theme 4 is really about accountability. Accountability from staff and leadership may help improve outcomes. In the quote here from the staff member is have leadership held accountable, which will have them hold their staff accountable. Something that we definitely agree with. One of the things that we often talk about, this is not just an OEEO responsibility. This is a Metropolitan Council responsibility, and we've got to do a better job of creating that shared responsibility and shared accountability for outcomes. And again, that's one of the things and one of the reasons why we've been pushing for our diverse spend plan policy to help create that shared responsibility and shared accountability across the staff, across the council.
Thank you, Shanti. I know I'm gonna keep on pace here, but I wanna add this. It is our job as council members to hold leadership accountable with downward pressure and upward pressure from staff within the organization. And I think you have our full commitment, so keep us apprised of things. Because I can't speak for everybody here, but this is important and we wanna make sure, and leadership has a lot on their plates and we're doing transformational things and all the things, but you know, this is good for us to know that however we can hold the leadership team and everybody that reports to them accountable that, you know, gets into this stuff, you know, we're here to do that too.
Thank you. All right, theme 5 is really about training, both internally and external training, increased and updated training and resources for both staff and business owners may improve their use of tools available. And I think this is definitely in line with some of the empirical experiences that we've had. I know that I went to talk to a group about, you know, their small business data and achievement, and they were like, we spend, I don't want to say the amount because it might give away the business group, we spend that much on P-card, what is it? So then I had to send them a report. This is a list of all the stuff you've used your P-card for. And so the point is, if you don't know what you're spending it on, there's not a way for you to make improvements and improve upon it. So the type of training that we want to provide and need to provide to staff is definitely something that hits home and part of our strategy moving forward.
And again, just Ashante on that 82.21% of business owners indicated that having a guidebook on how to do business with Met Council would be a helpful tool. Well, if you're lucky enough to serve on CDC, we approve guidebooks and handbooks and all the things because our partners need that. And we know that, and they're very important and a lot of detail and resources in them, so yes, we should do that.
Well, you're bringing a smile to my face, Madam Chair, because that is actually one of the recommendations that the consultant has already started helping us put together, is a guidebook that will help folks trying to connect with us and do business, and a step-by-step approach. So yes, that is something that we are actually already in the process of putting together.
Great. And we all know in all the versions of whatever languages and in what formats that everybody can be integrated into that information, whatever their abilities are, right? So, yep, that's awesome. Let's do that.
Thank you. And then finally, theme 6, increase strategic opportunities for staff and business owners to connect and may be welcomed. A business owner said it's still hard to find the person who makes the decision. So again, this is really about our outreach. This is why we are constantly pushing for those meet and greets, both individually and group-wise, because we know that it's important to make those kinds of connections, to start those relationships so that those relationships can turn into partnerships.
And we've slowed you down, but you have like 2 more minutes.
Okay.
And I'm sure we've all pre-read this too, so we're good.
Try to get through this as fast
You're
as
doing
possible.
great.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, so the areas researched were policies, procedures, and programs, people and practices, data and IT, marketing, communication, access, outreach, and engagement, training, and education. There were 9 areas assessed as far as policies, procedures, and programs go. And some of these are examples of some of the things that they assessed. This is both across the country, locally, through partners, or not partners, excuse me, through our peers that are here in the state of Minnesota. Prompt payment and late penalties, this is one of the things that they researched and also later recommend. The state of California has if the requirement is not met, the State Department must automatically calculate and pay the appropriate late payment penalties. Requirements in state statute, so there's a state statute that tells them exactly what the percentage is. Assistance for contractors is also required, late payment penalty paid, and then there's a reporting dashboard. There's a 16-member cross-department body created. This is also one of the recommendations that the consultant has made. And this was based on a Harvard case study. Data and information, they looked at the Hawaii Awards and Notices data system. It pulls contracts from all entities across the state of Hawaii, includes a data dashboard, breaks out opportunities by categories. And then training and education. Training, one of the examples, I'll actually go to the next slide. One of the, so Washington has a state statute, but one of the examples that they gave us was around language, limited English proficiency. In the state of Virginia, they noticed that there were concrete inspection tests required for, offered only in English. And they noticed that some of the contractors were falling out of the system. And realized it was because of certification was only in English. And so they used federal funds to translate training materials. They got those folks certified and back on the project. Marketing and communications, they highlighted the 21st Century Integrated Digital Experience Act requirements. This particular act is important. Because it really focuses on the user experience, right? And the constant feedback. So the user has the ability to provide feedback, things need to be accessible, and then requires the organization to constantly make adjustments and updates based on the user experience. And the feedback that we got from businesses, that's user experience. They're telling us what they're experiencing. They're the folks that are trying to access these programs. And so we need to adjust our internal practices, our programs, our procedures, and policies so that they're able to access these things. Assessment categories, these are also just the policies, procedures, and programs that they looked over. People's practice, they highlighted silos and dysfunctions. One of the things that I thought was interesting is that although there is a positional power in theory, so some folks have positional power in the organization, there's a lack of budget power, like some of the field scans. So when they compared us to other folks and other organizations, equal positions, we didn't have the same type of sometimes decision-making power and then often budget power. And then same thing with the data and IT as we talked about before. Training and education, I'm not gonna go over this because I think Ashanti touched on this. Access and outreach. The LEP and ADA access requirements, that came up quite a bit. We need to do a better job with language access. And then marketing and communication, the BPSI, EAMS system. I don't know, Ashanti, if you wanna touch on that.
I think Phil touched a little bit on it, on the BPSI system.
Yeah. Sounds good. And then the recommendations, there were 31 total recommendations for infrastructure. They address silos and opportunities for staff to work better together. The data and IT, we talked about that. The guidebook, that was a really big one. And then they also provided a sample work plan. And so the sample work plan also came with the interactive website that they provided with data, disaggregated data. And we've actually started on some of the easier things that we can do internally, so. Any questions?
That's great. Are there any questions, Councilmember Pacheco?
Chair, members, I don't see it in here, but what is the role of certification in all of this, and how does that hinder or help? I mean, 'cause everyone says, well, I have to go through all this information and it costs me money to get certified and I got 10% of what I put into it, and then I just give up. What are you seeing in that area, or is there any reference in here?
Madam Chair, Councilmember Pacheco, certification was not part of the scope of the study. What I will say is that, yes, that's always been kind of a message that we've been tuned into and been trying to make adjustments. There's the one-stop shop that was created through Department of Admin for certification. There's also this body, and there's other folks within the region that provide support and help relative to getting certification. Department of Admin has a program. We just initiated a supportive services contract last year to help small businesses in many aspects of certification as well. The study didn't look at that and how it impacts outcomes in our procurement activities, but it's definitely a theme that we pay attention to and try to mitigate.
I also think indirectly, although the study didn't really look into that, but indirectly, I think if our processes internally are tightened up, it'll actually become easier to get certified. And if we continue to take in feedback and adjust things and be more nimble so that we can adjust things, certification will actually get easier, and that time that it takes in paperwork, think about, just using a system internally, the process is very manual. I don't think everyone really realizes that. And so as we tighten up those things internally, that process will get better for the end user.
And Chair, if I may, and I know we're gonna have to kind of shift membership here in a minute, but to this point, I'm glad you brought that up, Councilmember Pacheco, and during one of my quests for sort of what am I gonna do when I grow up was around becoming certifying myself. And so I interviewed going concerns that were certified, and beyond certification, you have to build it into your business model, right? You get certified and then you can just sit there, and it was just a burden to get it done. But if you get certified and then that's an active part of the business that you're seeking, those people were tremendously successful. They would, and so that kind of goes back to training. It's kind of separate. It's not a state or federal or regional requirement, but that would be enhancing the small business community to train folks how to leverage certification into their business model.
Sorry. Go ahead, Ashanti.
I'll just add a little bit to what you're saying. Actually, just a few months ago, I was tapped to be the guest speaker for the event that we host with our partner agencies in the region, who are newly certified. Kind of okay, now you're certified. What now? Why is that important? Why is that? How can you utilize that certification to advance your business? And that's something that we partner with and put on every year with partners in the region.
Yep.
And Madam Chair, just one quick comment before we have to do some shifting here. The same presentation was given to the exec team, which was a great presentation. It generated a really good discussion. So this is really like the first step to this. There will be a more comprehensive plan that internally, what are we doing as the council to really move some of these initiatives? So that'll be coming forward at a future management committee for an FY. But I just want to make sure that everyone knew we had the discussion, we recognize some of the opportunities that we have, and Ashanti and Lila have done a great job of laying that out for us, and they'll lead this internally going forward.
Look forward to it.
Councilmember Pacheco?
And this was, presentation was also made to the Equity Advisory Committee, and
Great.
as we're going through the process, we'll come back after we get feedback and go back there, so it's not just one and done type thing, here's what you have, so.
That's great. Yeah, and again, just thank you for this hard work, but I know in all the ways we're touching this work throughout the council, it's just important to keep us informed at management so that we can keep applying positive pressure on the system to support you in this and just be really mindful and aware ourselves as we're trying to, this is my 6th year here, I guess I'm going into year 7, and before I'm done, I just really wanna make sure you have everything you need, and everybody does, right? Because it's so important. I mean, it's one of the top goals of this body, so we wanna make sure we give you the resources you need. I think this is fascinating. I think this vendor has done, sounds like great job for you. Important, that we couldn't, maybe self-analyze, so applause, thank you to everybody who's part of this, and we look forward to updates.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we are now at the part of the agenda where we have a litigation review in it, and I will look to Council, Hooligan, thank you.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I move that this meeting be closed to the public pursuant to Minnesota statute, section 13D, 05, subdivision 3B, and applicable case law so the committee can discuss with our legal counsel in a confidential setting attorney-client privileged matters.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Pacheco. Just quickly, a body by majority vote in a public meeting may decide to hold a closed session under section, Minnesota statute sections 13D 05 subdivision 3B of Minnesota open meeting law to discuss attorney-client privilege matters. Discussing these litigation matters in a confidential setting will permit the council to engage in candid discussions and resolve these matters in a way that benefits the council and the public. Discussions during the closed session portion of this meeting to discuss attorney-client matters will be confined to the pending litigation matters listed in the committee agenda. So with that, let's have a motion, or we've got a motion and a second. We will vote on closing the meeting. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. That passes. Again, before we, as we close the meeting to discuss pending litigation, I'd like to inform members of the public who are monitoring this meeting that, for the record, the committee will adjourn immediately after the discussion of this information item, and that the committee will not have any discussions or conduct any business after this information item is complete. For the record, please note that this meeting was closed to the public at 3:31 p.m. and on January 2nd, 2025. And we want to just make sure that we're
22nd.
or 20, I'm sorry, what did I say?
Second.
Jeez, I mean, that's really bad. January 22nd, 2025. And as soon as we know that and then Councilmember Lee, would you take over for me? I've just gotta jump to a meeting real quick.
Sure.
But then when you guys are getting ready to close, I'll come back because we need quorum to close it as well, I understand. So, looking at
To
it.
reopen, I thought we just needed quorum to vote to close.
I think we needed quorum to vote to close.
Yeah.
So that's.
Oh, and we're good?
And we're just
Okay,
adjourned.
Councilmember Lee, would you do